morning, everyone. Second on the slate here, and everybody's got their coffee and their vitamins balanced. The story here is a new discovery over the years at West Cache, which was formerly the TPW property. There's been no mines, open pit, underground, in our ground, but we're sandwiched between the Newmont ground, the famous mines in Timmins, and the West Mine, which was Lakeshore. And that's where the story takes off here. The disclaimer here, I might step on my toes here and say something I shouldn't, so this supposedly covers us. But the main key here is the Timmins camp. Over 80 million ounces in the main camp. You stretch it out along strike on the Destor Porcupine. You've got about 120 million ounces that have been mined there. Strong economics on this project. We picked it up with no economics. We picked it up with 325 core holes, 150,000 meters of drilling. We said, I think we can do something with this. It was a blind discovery, wildcat drilling years ago, mainly because glacial fill covers the first 6 to 20 meters. There is no outcrops on this property. So that was a plus for us to get a hold of it later on, where the old timers would have had a mine there already. Now the management team I've got is pretty much the same management team we had in Apollo. We built the Black Fox mine, and we'll show you where that is on the east end of the camp. And we have a large land position. We started with 6,000 hectares. We now have about 10,000 hectares. Quickly on the shares outstanding, about 61 million. We had a lot when we did a consolidation. When I picked the property up, we used the Explorer base for that, put it together, and then consolidated it to 10 to 1 to make it look like a real mining company. So you get down to it, we're worth about 12 to 14 million dollars market cap today. Well, just like everybody else, we're not underwater. We're like Jacques Cousteau. We're way down there right now. But we'll get there. But our main shareholders are Eric Sprott, surprise, surprise, in the junior camp. He's there if he likes your project, mainly if you've got high grade. We've got retail, and then we've got CCM Capital out of Frankfurt, great shareholders there. And then our management team, which is Lisa Buchan here in the audience, if you want to talk to her later. She's my right-hand person with just about everything we do. And then we have institutions in float. Okay, just quickly on it, on the Timmins camp, if you haven't been up there, it's about a 2-hour air flight to land and 15 minutes out to the property. And Tim's been out there with us, taking a look at it. And you can see where we're located, mainly in the blue area there, and the West Mine being on our west side. We abut that, but we picked up some ground to the south and southeast of us there to actually consolidate the block within that area. And then you see the Hollinger, McIntyre, and the Dome. That's the Newmont complex there. That's still in production today. And then you go on down the trend to the Taylor Mine, the Stock Mine and Mill, Black Fox. Now, we built the Black Fox project. This was back in 2002 through 2008. It's gone through 3 hands since then, but we brought it online as an 85,000 ounce producer. It should have ran out of ore about 2018-19. I believe they have over 3 million ounces there left. So we were right on that one. On this one, I think this is at least 5 or 10 times the amount of gold eventually that'll come out of this project. So, you know, it's a very strong trend. It's got the Destor Porcupine, both the north limb and the south limb on it. Blow up the land package here. We've got Highway 101 coming right through the property. You can stop at Horton's. You can grab a coffee and a donut. In 15 minutes, you can be at the site. It's almost like a gentleman's mine. You're not out in the bush. You don't have a lot of things to deal with out there. You still got moose running around. And you still got the black flies and the bugs and that sort of thing. Okay, let's get into the mineral resource. Now, this is the first one. When I put it together, we said, okay, we're going to drill 50,000 meters. We're going to internally drill this. We're going to do a PEA study. And Eric asked me, Dave, why are you going to do a PEA study? Just keep drilling the high grade. And I said, well, look, there's no economics to tell anybody on this property. I got to tell them why I'm doing this. Now, I want you to keep in mind, a PEA study, you don't build a mine on it, but you develop your resource base from there up to pre-feasibility to feasibility. And that's what we intend on doing. And you can see the actual cutoff numbers. You can use what you'd like. Right now, what I'd say is within the PEA study, there's 940,000 ounces out of the 1.5 million ounces that you see on this sheet here. That's the key. You can build on that, both underground and open pit. We did the West Cache economics mainly on underground. And why do we do that? Because it's pretty straightforward when you permit an underground mine compared to an open pit. There's a lot of work that you've got to put in when you've got a strip ratio, like say a 7 to 1, 10 to 1. You know, what are you doing with the waste? What's the footprint look like? Well, when we look at underground, it's a smaller footprint than the environmental database you've got to work with. So the NPV is $378 million on this. Return on your investment is 33%. And the years of payback are about 2.5. We put 3 on there. And the initial capital will be about $150 million. Do you spend that all at once? No. It takes about 3 to 5 years to build an underground mine correctly. And we're going to start the first phase with a bulk sample here this next year. We used on this one $1,700 gold price. The reserve base was built on $1,650 though. Just want you to know that. And the actual cash costs are about $114 projected, loaded with capital, $987. What I wanted to see on this is, are we under $1,000 an ounce? The answer is yes, you are. Now, we've got a little bit of inflation here recently that we're probably going to have to add into that. But sold gold will be 893,000 ounces, at least on this plan. Now, if you'd like to see if gold price goes up to 1900, you see the numbers get more robust as you go. If you want to go down to 1500, we still got great economics. So we're okay on a curve right on this project. Now, P&E, when they developed this project, they actually segregated it. We have what's called the distal porcupine shear. There's actually 8 different structures, but in the drilling, we found another structure called number 9. Instead of quartz feldspar porphyry, it is a sediment unit volcanic rock, and it's very consistent, 10 to 12 meters wide, and it runs anywhere from 7 to 15 gram gold. We'll say about 8 average where we'll bulk sample. But anyway, what they laid out was a ramp system on Mine A. That's what we'll start with. We'll go down to a bulk sample there. Then we'll move on to the west zone. We believe Mine A is Mine B. We believe the down dip extension to the number 9 structure is what they call the north zone. Now, they hit this about 750 to 1,000 meters in depth. Years ago, they were wildcat drilling, and voila, they slammed into some really high grade. They didn't know really what they had. But our geologists have fleshed it out, and we believe it's the sediment-hosted package way down deep, which is great. That says you got some longevity to the mine. You'll probably have a shaft someday there. Now, Mine C, it's the same thing as the west zone. It's your big shears, and you see we've got more red than we do the brown area on west zone. And what is it? Well, we don't have enough drilling in between to tie them all together yet, but they will tie together eventually if you get enough holes. But we felt it was time to stop, do a PEA study. Now we'll go back to work on the underground development of that bulk sample and continue drilling from the surface. And we also picked up what we call the Dwyer piece of ground, and that was way out east. We'd seen in some drilling that was done in 1936, some wildcat drilling, that they hit some gold there. So I went to the owner, he was an old fella, and told him I wanted to buy the property. And he said, why do you want to do that? And I said, well, there's gold on it. And he goes, did you drill on my property? And I said, no, sir, I did not drill on your property, but I looked at the old holes that your grandfather drilled, and yet they had gold. So he liked us, we bought the property, and it's called Mine D now. So one day we'll get it all tied together, but it's going to take another probably 150,000 meters of drilling to actually tie this whole thing together. But you can build a mine as you go. So when you flip up from looking on a plan view like we were looking at, we flip it on its side. What we're looking at is, say, from the left, Mine D, Mine C, Mine B, and A. Now, A is where we'll start. We'll bring the ramp down in the upper area of the number 9 ore zone, and it's called bulk sample area. And then you see the west deep, way down deep down there. Okay, that was one of the original discoveries. And, you know, how did we get lucky and hit it up high? Well, the geologist did a 3-point problem and said, hey, if we drill 80 meters below the surface, we should hit that same structure. Well, the geologist hit it on the first drill hole. And it was about 10 meters wide, and it ran about 12 gram gold. So we thought, gosh, we're off and running. We've got an ore chute developing here that'll be pretty stellar as time goes on. And that's what mines are built on. They're built on these high-grade ore chutes. Okay, this is one of the first maps I've added to it, is where you look at the east zone. These are all the shears brought in from 2,000 meters together with the drilling. It looks like with all the drill holes going from the north to the south that you've mined the ore body out with drill holes. Remember, this is about 2,000, 3,000 meters on strike here. We bring them together to show you what the structures look like when you're bringing them together. I sat down with Eric Sprott. I showed him that deeper drilling, and I said, look, there's 9.2 grams, 11 meters, 5.4 of 11 meters, 8.1 of 15 meters, 5.1 of 5. That's an ore body in itself. And he said, do you think you can hit it up higher? And I said, well, that's what we're shooting for. Well, lo and behold, up higher, we've got 7.1 at 9 meters, 7.4 at 10 meters. We got 8.6 at 10 meters, 9.4 at 10 meters. We got it. We hit it dead on. So That's the first place we'll go take a look at, and we'll set up 4 blast hole open stopes there to actually take off with this project. And now you can see the core over to the right. It's gold ore, but it's a little bit different than your free gold. It makes me very comfortable when I don't see chunks of gold. We like to see gold like that, but that opens you up for theft and a whole lot of other issues when you have a lot of free gold. Not saying I don't like it, but this is more of pyrite gold electrum, chalcopyrite electrum, that sort of thing in here. The recovery with SGS Labs is 96 to 98%, so it's typical recovery for the Timmins camp. Now, what P&E did is they did a comparative with the West Mine. Now, the West Mine is, we believe, on the north limb of the structure. We're on the south. We've yet got to drill the north limb on our property. But we said, you know, their mining techniques are very good there. They're very low cost. I mean, let's not reinvent the wheel. So P&E Consultants had a lot of work in past history with the Timmins West Mine, so they applied a lot of the same things with putting ramps down. One thing you'll notice, they've got 3 different ramps. They do have a shaft, where we had 4 ramps, and you see our ramp system where our shears are. We've got a lot more shear zones to work with than what the West Mine did. So, you know, theoretically, we should be here for another 25 or 50 years within our ore body area. Okay, the first thing you do on a closure plan, say if we're going to take it underground, is you get it all completed. You do your geotechnical drilling, your soil sampling, your archaeology, your consultation, your industrial sewage, your air and noise. We've pretty much done all of that. We're on the last few weeks of doing geotechnical work on the property. Once that's done, all the documents we put together, they'll be submitted to the ministry. We're targeting about August to actually submit those documents. And this is for an underground permit again. This is for bulk sampling. This isn't for your full mine permit. A lot of folks say, well, why don't you just permit the whole mine? I said, well, that's probably not a really good thing to do, is you go out and tell everybody we're going to spend 150, 200 million building a mine, but you haven't gone down and you haven't set your mining methods, what the costs are, what the metallurgical is in the bigger mill picture, that sort of thing. You gotta answer a lot of questions. So we're doing it one step at a time. This is called pre-feasibility work. So once we set the plan layout, we put the underground ramp system in, we'll be off and running, obviously setting a mine up, but it's the first step of getting into pre-feasibility study. Now the ramp will be roughly about 2,400 meters down to come alongside the ore body. We'll re-drill it. Now we've drilled it from the surface. We'll drill it again on 12.5 to 15 meter centers. Then we'll go in and set 4 blast hole open stopes up. We'll ship the ore either to the Bell Creek Mill, Newmont Mill, or one of the local mills there for metallurgical studies. Now in doing so, what's the tonnage? We're permitting for 100,000 tons. We're saying those 4 stopes will be 86,500 tons. The gold in it will be about 22,000 ounces, and the grade will be about 8 grams. Now, diluted, say you're going to probably net out at about 7.7, 7.8 grams. The bulk sample will tell us the whole story, at least in this area, how we handle the actual ground conditions and whatnot. We will use contractors with this, and that's the best way to go to get started with. But look forward to, this is a template that can be applied within the other ore zones within the ore bodies here. Now, what kind of revenue stream do you make off of it? Well, you make roughly about 43, 45 million at $1,700 gold. As gold price rises, we may make a bit more money. So I'm not telling you we're going to make money, but the whole project will be about 26 million to get the ramp down, do all the drilling, the test mining, the milling, that sort of thing. And we should, you know, with the revenue stream back calculate, make about 17, 18 million dollars free cash flow on a test mine. So, like I said, this is kind of forward, but, you know, theoretically, you can make a bit of money here if you're doing it right. Okay, now you look at the chart here that we've got up. That's we'll fast forward from today through 2024. The permitting will actually be applied for with all the documentation. The ministry actually knows what we're doing. They've actually seen cutouts of what we're doing. They just say, give us the document and we'll push it ahead. There'll be a bonding that will be set at the same time, and theoretically we could be approved by, let's say, October or November. Am I going to finance this thing all at once, 25, 26 million? No. I can do it in stages. This is an 18-month project. So the first stage will be roughly about 3.5 million to get us through the actual grubbing the ground, laying out the power drops, the transformers, what they call box cut. where you pull off the gravel and sand at a certain slope, and then you actually drill and blast the portal for the ramp and start the ramp down and put the waste on the surface. But anyway, on that end of it, it should be a pretty good project, and by 2025, we should have a pretty good idea of what this mine's going to look like. Is it going to be just an underground? Is it going to have an open pit with it, which it probably will? Is it 2,500 tons a day? Is it 5,000 tons a day? Well, we'll actually probably be producing about 500 to 700 tons a day on the bulk sample. Okay, the south zone. This is another area that we haven't talked about that we're going to add to the portfolio. On the left side of the picture, you see where the number 9 zone is here. We've talked about that enough and about the ramp, but then you move over to the south. We've hit another zone over there, and it's really a number 9 lookalike. So stay tuned. That's the next phase here. As we move to the south, we're not to the Desert Porcupine structure there yet. You don't usually mine in that structure, but there's other structures that are parallel to it. So this is a growing story. Anyway, what we've got for the shareholders really is we're in a premier mining jurisdiction. We've got a PEA that sets the stage for, do you have economics, should you take this project forward? And then we've got, blue sky, strike dip to the north, to the south on this project. Like I said, I think we're going to be here 25 to 50 years on this mine. But again, no outcrops, nothing, everything was wildcat. That's how it was found here. And we started, I'll mention, permitting the baselines 3 years ago when we picked the project up. We went to lease 3 years ago. Well, everything's now culminating and coming together. We've got the PA done. We're going to permit an underground ramp system. But we did our environmental background, our 3 years of baseline, 3 years in advance of knowing you had a project. So take a look at a project when you invest in them. Did they start early on leasing, going to lease with the crown land? Do they have patent land? Did they start all the studies? Because if they haven't, and they say, Jesus, we got 1 million, 2 million ounces of gold, well, sit down. You got 3 years of work ahead of yourself before you can actually permit a project and get it moving. But we've got an experienced management team. I'll kind of stop there, but our team is, most of it is still the same group that we did at the Black Fox project. They built an 85,000 ounce producer, so we're not reinventing the wheel as far as permitting. Our general manager of the Black Fox project is our same general manager, and his degree is in environmental engineering, but he converted himself into running mines, but he's a real shoe-in. Our COO is a real seasoned Canadian mining engineer, metallurgical engineer that's run mines, including Red Dog in Alaska, and he's a real seasoned guy to work with. And then we've got Lisa Buchan, like I said, here. She's a chemical engineer, PE, and she's been through the ropes on nickel and other products and that sort of thing. So we've got a great team to work with, and people they like their project. They like working on this project, and they know why they're getting out of bed every day. They're going to build a gold mine. So with that, I think I've only got a couple more minutes, but I'll open it up for questions here.